And so Jews suffered, journalists suffered. There were many who thought this was an act against the freedoms of speech.
But there's a difference between insulting the honor of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, what this particular magazine did was portray him naked. And they portrayed him in different images like that, which is
you're going to have to get over it.
It's only when we see anti-Semitism fused with anti-Zionism that our worst fears are so often realized.
These are the precise words of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna. In 1948, he said this: "If the Jewish state becomes a fact, the Arabs will drive the Jews who live in their midst into the sea." Hassan al-Banna was a supporter of Hitler. The Muslim Brotherhood translated Mein Kampf into Arabic in the 1930s. The Brotherhood is the creator of both Hamas and the Muslim Students Association, which are leaders of the campaign to destroy the Jewish state.
The Muslim community here in Australia number almost 500,000. Almost everyone wanting to live a peaceful and enjoyable life and to enjoy their faith too. There may be those that would say otherwise or wish otherwise, but we need to support their freedom to be here. The words that are being daubed on our stations and bus stops and around the city, these aren't expressions of freedom or freedom of speech and should not be protected or tolerated by anyone. It must be understood that that is not what it was intended to protect. Jews should be free, as should Muslims, to walk down the streets and enjoy their own foods in their own schools without fear of persecution or intolerance. On Australia Day 2015, in a country which proudly flies a virtual flag of egalitarianism and freedom of speech, a country where I can still practice Jewish culture alongside those of Muslim and Christian faith.
Is the time coming to lay the Holocaust to rest?
This week, the BBC were inundated with protests from Jewish viewers on Holocaust Day.
I was raised as a Muslim and I grew up in a culture where Jews were demonized. Holocaust was completely denied. It was claimed that the Jews are exploiting this to gain power, etc. So to say that we have achieved everyone's educated in Holocaust and it's acknowledged and it's not such a big deal is a complete nonsense.
So no, the time hasn't come to lay the Holocaust to rest, and it never will, and never ever again is the message.
It is sometimes said in Britain, so a member of Parliament even said it today, that this is not really anti-Semitism, this is about Israel. Forgive me. The Jews who were murdered in a supermarket in Paris 2-3 weeks ago were murdered not because they were Israeli. They weren't. They were murdered because they were Jews. The Jews killed last year in a Jewish museum in Brussels were killed because they were Jews. The rabbi and 3 young school children murdered in Toulouse in 2012 were killed because they were Jews. The terrorists who walked away from their attack on Mumbai and traveled to a Chabad house to murder the rabbi and his 6-month pregnant wife, Rahman al-Islam. This was about Jews. This is anti-Semitism purely and simply.
But because of the actions of the State of Israel and the appalling treatment of the Israelis towards the Palestinians and the settlements that have been built in contravention of the United Nations rulings and the support that has been given by American Jews and Australian Jews to what is going on in Israel, anti-Semitism has again reared its horrific, ugly head, and anti-Semitism is as unacceptable as anti-Muslim feeling.
So it's Israel's fault, is it, Miriam? Anti-Semitism is only the result of a war that we were forced to take action in, and one that we would dearly love never to have to repeat again. Sadly, it is a state of affairs that Israel needs to protect itself. If it doesn't, it will be obliterated. And if Miriam as a Jew doesn't appreciate the value of Israel, then I'm afraid that's a very sad indication of her own belief.
I can only urge the leaders of the world not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand. But I know that Israel does not stand alone. I know that America stands with Israel. I know that you stand with Israel.
The expression of political opinion on university campuses all over the world is nothing new. But some of the sentiment that's being expressed today is getting a little bit concerning.
We support the Antifada! We support the Antifada! Israel is a terrorist state!
I would have never said a year ago that this would happen on my campus. 30-something% Jews, proud Jews, Zionists, such strong Jewish and Israel community, pro-Israel communities, this would never happen.
This week at the University of Sydney, I'm getting more and more of an anti-Semitic feeling here about what she's saying and the way she's saying it.
In supporting Palestinian self-determination, we act in the Jewish tradition that has fought collective punishment, murder, and racism for centuries. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Whatever happened to the peace now, the love not war approach that when I was younger, that was far more attractive than the avenues of war.
The baby face of an Islamic State recruit. This is Jake Bellardi, the latest Australian revealed to be fighting in Iraq and Syria.
Sounds extraordinary, but then using the internet as the tool, Islamic State have been able to influence without directly contacting this individual. Benjamin Netanyahu is once again the Prime Minister of Israel and quite possibly the King of the Jews for some time to come. This election could have been about domestic politics, about the disparity between rich and poor in Israel, but it actually turned out to be about a re-election, that of Benjamin Netanyahu's, and also about the security that is clearly the most important issue that sits in the psyche of the vast majority of Israelis. And quite rightly so, with Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS and many Arab states just waiting for the opportunity to wipe out the Jewish people once and for all.